In January 2025, I moved into a small apartment in a quiet residential building that didn't get much attention from the outside world. The rent was cheap, the area was calm, and most of the residents kept to themselves, which suited me perfectly. On my first day, I noticed the apartment across the hall had its doors slightly worn compared to the others. It looked older, like it hadn't been touched in years. I asked the building caretaker about it, and he casually mentioned that someone still lived there. That didn't seem strange at first. What caught my attention was that I never actually saw anyone come in or out of that apartment. Days passed, then weeks. My routine became consistent. Wake up, leave for work, come back late, repeat. And during all that time, I never once saw the neighbor from that unit. No footsteps in the hallway, no door opening, no deliveries, nothing. One evening around 9:15 p.m., I heard a faint sound while standing in the hallway. It came from directly across my door, a soft dragging noise, slow, like something moving across the floor inside the apartment. I paused and listened carefully. The sound stopped abruptly. I waited for a few seconds. Silence. Then it started again. This time it sounded closer to the door. I felt uneasy but tried to ignore it. I knocked once on the neighbor's door out of curiosity. No response. I knocked again. Still nothing. As I was about to walk away, I heard something from inside. A faint voice, very low, almost like a whisper pressed against the door. "Who is it?" I froze. The voice sounded dry, not like someone who spoke often. I hesitated before responding. "Just your neighbor. I live across the hall." There was a long pause. Too long. Then the voice came again. "You're early today." That confused me. Early compared to what? I hadn't spoken to anyone in that apartment before. I slowly stepped back and returned to my room. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the voice. It didn't sound friendly. It didn't sound curious either. It sounded like someone who had been waiting. The next day, I asked another resident about the apartment. They looked uncomfortable and avoided eye contact. When I asked if they knew who lived there, they said, "No one new has lived there for years. The last person never officially moved out." That answer made my stomach tighten. I pressed further, but they refused to explain and quickly walked away. That night, I decided to observe the door more carefully. I stayed awake and kept the hallway light on from my apartment. Around 2:10 a.m., I heard it again. The dragging sound, slow, coming from inside the neighbor's unit. Then a soft thud, like something bumping into the door from the inside. I quietly opened my door and looked out. The neighbor's door was slightly moving, not opening, just shifting, as if something inside was pressing against it. I stepped a little closer. My heart was beating faster than usual. The door suddenly stopped moving. Everything went silent again. We stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then, very faintly, I heard footsteps, not approaching the door, but pacing inside the apartment. Slow, repetitive, like someone walking in circles. I knocked again, more cautiously this time. "Hello," I said. The footsteps stopped immediately. Then, after a pause, the voice returned. "You shouldn't be here this late." The tone was different this time, more serious, almost warning. I stepped back again. "I'm just checking in," I replied nervously. There was no immediate response. Then the voice said something that made my blood run cold. "We don't open the door after dark." I didn't understand what that meant. We? Who was we? Before I could ask anything else, I heard multiple sounds inside the apartment. Not just one person moving, several, footsteps overlapping, doors opening and closing inside, whispering voices speaking at the same time. I stood frozen outside my door, unable to process what I was hearing. Then suddenly, everything stopped. Complete silence. A minute passed, then another. I slowly backed into my apartment and closed my door. The next morning, I checked the neighbor's door again. It looked exactly the same as before. No signs of damage, no signs of movement, no indication that anything unusual had happened. I decided to ask the caretaker again. This time, his reaction was different. He looked uncomfortable and avoided the topic at first. But after a moment, he finally said something that didn't make sense. That unit has been sealed from the outside for years. No one lives there, and no one should be inside. I felt my mind go blank. I told him I had heard a voice coming from inside the apartment. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked at the door across the hall, then quietly said, "If you hear something again, don't answer it, and don't knock." That night, I made sure everything was locked before going to sleep. Around 1:58 a.m., I woke up suddenly to a noise in the hallway, a soft knock, coming from the neighbor's door. Not loud, just one knock, then silence. I stayed still in bed, listening carefully. A few seconds later, my phone lit up on its own. There was a notification from an unknown number. The message simply said, "You answered before. Why didn't you come inside?" In February 2025, I moved into an old apartment that had been recently renovated, but still carried a strange atmosphere that I couldn't quite explain. The place looked clean and modern on the surface, but certain parts of it felt untouched by the renovation, like they had been left exactly as they were before. One of those things was a large mirror mounted on the wall of the bedroom. It wasn't new. It had a slightly aged frame, and the reflection seemed just a little too clear, almost sharper than reality. I didn't think much of it at first. A mirror is just a mirror. At least that's what I believed. On my second night in the apartment, I was getting ready for bed around midnight when I noticed something unusual while standing in front of the mirror. My reflection moved a fraction of a second later than I did. At first, I assumed it was just my imagination or a trick of the lighting. I tested it by raising my hand slowly. My reflection followed, but there was a slight delay, not noticeable at a glance, but enough to make me pause and stare. I leaned closer. The reflection leaned closer too, but again just slightly behind my movement. I laughed nervously and told myself it was nothing. Still, something about the mirror felt off. The next morning, everything seemed normal again. The reflection matched perfectly. No delay, no distortion. I dismissed the experience as fatigue and went on with my day. But that night, the delay returned, and this time it was more noticeable. I waved my hand quickly in front of the mirror. My reflection hesitated before copying the motion. I stopped moving completely and stared at it. The reflection stopped too, but then something strange happened. My reflection blinked again, even though I hadn't. I froze instantly. I didn't move. The reflection looked back at me, and then very slowly, it smiled. I felt my chest tighten. My reflection was smiling without me doing it. I stepped back from the mirror immediately. The reflection stopped smiling and returned to a neutral expression. I told myself I needed to sleep and ignored it for the rest of the night. The next day, I decided to test the mirror more carefully. I set my phone to record while I stood in front of it. I performed a few simple movements, raising my hand, turning my head, walking side to side. Everything appeared normal in the recording. No delays, no unusual behavior. That confused me even more. That night, I watched the recording again before going to bed. The mirror looked completely normal in the video, but when I turned to face it in real time, the delay was still there. It was as if the mirror behaved differently depending on whether it was being watched through a screen or directly. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly for no reason. The room was dark. Only faint light from the street outside illuminated the mirror. I sat up in bed and looked toward it. My reflection was already standing, even though I was lying down. I froze. My breathing became shallow. I hadn't gotten out of bed, but in the mirror, my reflection was upright. Standing in front of the mirror, facing me, I slowly looked down at myself. I was still in bed. Then I looked back at the mirror. The reflection raised its hand and pointed directly at me. Not at the reflection, at me, my body, the real one. I felt a wave of panic hit me. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Felt like something was holding me in place. My eyes stayed locked on the mirror. The reflection began moving closer, step by step, slowly approaching the edge of the mirror's frame. As it got closer, the details became clearer. This expression was not neutral anymore. It looked aware, fully aware of me. Then suddenly it spoke, not loudly, just enough for me to hear. "You're not supposed to wake up at this time." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I managed to force my hand to move slightly, and at that moment my reflection stopped moving. It stood still again, watching me, as if waiting. I closed my eyes tightly for a few seconds. When I opened them again, everything looked normal. My reflection was back in sync, standing exactly where I was, matching every movement. I got out of bed immediately and covered the mirror with a blanket. I didn't want to look at it again. The next morning, I removed the blanket and checked the mirror during daylight. Everything seemed normal again. No delays, no movement issues. But as I leaned closer to clean the surface, I noticed something written faintly on the inside of the glass. It wasn't visible from far away, only up close. The words looked like they had been there for a long time, and they weren't written from the outside. They were inside the reflection layer itself. The message read, "You will see it before it happens, not after." I stepped back slowly. That night, I decided not to sleep facing the mirror. I turned my bed away from it and avoided looking in that direction altogether. Around 3 a.m., I woke up again. This time I didn't move. I didn't look, but I could feel something. Presence in the room. Quiet, still, watching. I slowly turned my head just slightly toward the mirror, and in the faint light, I saw my reflection standing again. But this time it wasn't mimicking me. It was looking directly at something behind me, something I couldn't see. In March 2025, a 22-year-old college student named Leo Carter moved into a small studio apartment in a quiet part of the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was affordable, and that was all he cared about. The building was old, the hallways were narrow, and the lights flickered sometimes, but nothing felt truly wrong at first. Leo liked being alone. He spent most of his time editing videos, watching random clips, and scrolling on his phone late into the night. It was peaceful, too peaceful. On his fifth night there, something strange happened. At exactly 2:13 a.m., his phone buzzed. Leo groaned and picked it up, expecting a random notification. Instead, it was a message from an unknown number. "Are you awake?" He frowned. He didn't recognize the number. He ignored it and put his phone down. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. "I can see you." Leo sat up immediately. He looked around his room. The curtains were closed. The door was locked. No one could see inside. "This is dumb," he muttered. He picked up his phone and typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You don't recognize your own number?" Leo's chest tightened. He checked the number again. It was his number. Exactly the same. Same digits. No difference. "That's not possible," he whispered. He tried calling the number. His phone didn't even ring. Instead, another message appeared. "Don't look behind you." Leo froze. A cold wave ran through his body. Slowly, without thinking, he turned his head toward the corner of the room. Nothing was there. He let out a nervous laugh. "This is just someone messing with me," he said. His phone buzzed again. "You looked." This time, Leo didn't reply. He turned off his phone and tried to sleep, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. The next day felt normal. Leo almost convinced himself it was just a prank, until that night came again. 2:30 a.m. His phone buzzed. Same number, same message. "Are you awake?" Leo stared at the screen, his heart already racing. "What do you want?" he typed. The reply came slower this time. "Just to see you." Leo stood up and checked his apartment again. Closet, bathroom, under the bed, nothing. He walked toward the mirror near his desk. He stared at his reflection. Everything looked normal. Then his phone buzzed again. "Turn around." Leo didn't move. His reflection did, just slightly, a small twitch of the head. Leo's breathing stopped. He hadn't moved, but the reflection had. "No," he whispered. The reflection slowly smiled. Leo wasn't smiling. His hands started shaking. He stepped back. The reflection stayed still for a moment, then slowly lifted its hand. Leo didn't raise his hand. His phone buzzed again. "I told you I can see you." Leo backed away from the mirror completely. His chest felt tight, his mind racing. "This isn't real," he said. "This isn't real." But deep down he knew it was. That night, Leo didn't sleep. He sat in the corner of his room, staring at the mirror from a distance, waiting, watching. At exactly 2:13 a.m. again, his phone buzzed. "You're learning." Leo didn't reply. Another message came in. "Come closer." He shook his head. "I'm not going near that," he whispered. A pause. Then, "Okay, I'll come to you." Leo's heart dropped. The room went silent. Too silent. Then he heard it. A soft sound, like glass cracking. He slowly turned his head toward the mirror. A thin crack had formed across it. Then another, and another. The cracks spread rapidly, like something inside was trying to break through. Leo stumbled backward, his breathing out of control. "Stop!" he shouted. The mirror shattered, but the pieces didn't fall. They hung in place, floating, and in each piece he could see his reflection, all of them smiling. His phone buzzed one last time. "It's easier this way." Then suddenly, everything went dark. The next morning, the landlord unlocked Leo's apartment after multiple complaints about noise during the night. The room was empty, no sign of Leo anywhere. The mirror on the wall was completely intact. Not a single crack, but something felt wrong. The landlord noticed it immediately. The reflection in the mirror wasn't copying him correctly. It stood just a second too late, smiled just a little too wide, and as he slowly backed out of the room, the reflection raised its hand and waved goodbye. In April 2025, I started noticing something strange in my apartment that I couldn't explain at first. It began with a door, not a real one, just something I thought I imagined. One night around 1:40 a.m., I got up to get water and, as I passed the hallway, I noticed a faint outline on the wall that looked like a door shape. It wasn't there before. I was sure of it. I stood there for a moment, staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It looked like a closed door, but there was no handle, no frame, nothing solid, just a slightly darker outline against the wall. I reached out and touched it. Felt like a normal wall, flat, cold, nothing unusual. I shook my head and went back to bed, convincing myself it was just my eyes playing tricks in the dark. The next morning, the wall looked completely normal again. No outline, no shape, nothing at all. I even ran my hand across the spot where I thought I saw it, but there was no difference in texture. Everything felt smooth and solid. I forgot about it during the day, but that night it happened again. This time the outline was clearer, more defined. It looked exactly like a door, same height, same shape, but still no handle. I felt uneasy, but curiosity pushed me closer. I placed my hand on the center of the outline again. This time the wall felt slightly warmer than the rest, not by much, just enough to notice. I pulled my hand back immediately. Something about it didn't feel right. Over the next few nights, the door kept appearing at the same time, always after 1:30 a.m., always in the same spot, and each night it became more visible. Faint lines started forming where a frame should be. A slight indentation appeared where a handle might go. It was like the door was slowly becoming real. I stopped sleeping properly after that. Every night, I would wait, watching the hallway from my room, and every night it appeared again. One night, I decided to test something. I placed a small piece of tape on the wall where the outline would appear. I wanted to see if anything changed. When the door showed up that night, the tape was gone. Not fallen, not on the floor, just gone completely. My chest tightened as I realized something was definitely wrong. A few nights later, I noticed something new. A sound, faint at first, almost like a soft knock, came from the other side of the door, not from my side of the wall, but from behind it. I froze in place, listening carefully. The knock came again. 3 slow taps, then silence. I didn't move. I didn't respond. After a minute, the outline faded, and the wall returned to normal. The next night, the knocking came again, but this time it was followed by something else. A voice, muffled, like it was being blocked by something thick. I couldn't understand the words at first. I stepped closer, trying to listen. The voice became slightly clearer. It sounded like someone whispering from the other side. "Let me in." I stepped back immediately. My heart was racing. I didn't go near the hallway again that night. Days passed, but the situation kept getting worse. The door started appearing earlier each night. The knocking became louder. The voice became clearer. It wasn't just asking anymore. It was repeating the same sentence over and over. "Let me in. You can hear me." I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. One night, around 2:05 a.m., something changed. When the door appeared, it didn't look like an outline anymore. It looked real, solid, with a visible handle. I stood frozen at the end of the hallway, staring at it. The knocking stopped. The voice went silent. For a moment, everything was completely still. Then the handle moved slightly on its own. I felt my entire body go cold. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. The handle turned slowly, not fully, just enough to show that something on the other side was trying to open it. I stepped back, my breathing uneven. "Don't open it," I whispered to myself. The handle stopped moving. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, very slowly, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A voice, clear this time, not muffled anymore, and it sounded exactly like mine. "Why are you standing out there?" I froze completely. The voice continued, "You're the one inside." I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I checked the hallway again. The wall was normal. No door, no mark, nothing, but something felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. That night, I stayed in my room and locked the door. Around 1:30 a.m., I heard something behind me, a soft click. I turned slowly, and my heart stopped. The door was no longer in the hallway. It was inside my room, on the wall directly across from my bed, and the handle was already turning. In May 2025, I started taking a shortcut home through a quiet street that I had never noticed before, even though it was located just a few blocks from my usual route. The first time I walked through it, everything seemed normal at a glance. The street was narrow, lined with old houses that had dim porch lights, and there were no people around despite it being early evening. What caught my attention was how silent it felt, almost as if the sound of my footsteps was being absorbed rather than echoed. I kept walking, expecting to reach the main road within a minute or two, but the distance seemed longer than it should have been. I checked my phone to confirm the time, and when I looked up again, the street appeared slightly different. The houses looked the same, but their positions felt suddenly shifted, like the layout had reset without me noticing. I turned back to make sure I hadn't gone in a circle, but the entrance I came from was no longer visible. Instead, there was another stretch of the same street extending behind me. Confused, I kept walking forward, hoping to find an exit soon. After several minutes, I began to notice something unusual about the environment. I passed the same broken streetlight twice, then the same parked car with a faded blue door. I slowed down and started paying closer attention to my surroundings, and that's when I realized I was seeing the same objects repeatedly, even though I hadn't turned around. It was as if the street was looping without physically showing any turns. I stopped completely and looked ahead. A man appeared walking toward me from a distance. I recognized his posture because it looked exactly like mine when I walked. As he got closer, I realized he was wearing the same clothes I had on, down to the small details. He stopped when he reached me and looked directly at my face without saying anything. I tried to speak, but no words came out. The man then slowly raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned around instinctively, but when I looked back, he was gone. The street behind me looked identical to the one in front, and there was no sign of anyone being there. I turned forward again and noticed something even more disturbing. The surroundings had subtly changed again, as if time itself had shifted slightly. The lighting felt different. The shadows of the houses were angled in a way that didn't match the sky above. I checked my phone again, and the time had only moved forward by a minute, yet it felt like I had been walking for much longer. I started walking faster, trying to reach the exit as quickly as possible. But no matter how far I walked, the street seemed to extend endlessly, repeating patterns of houses, streetlights, and parked objects. At one point, I decided to test it deliberately. I picked a specific house with a cracked window and a red curtain inside. I counted my steps as I moved forward. After what I believed to be around 200 steps, I found the same house again with the same cracked window and red curtain. To confirm, I walked past it a second time while keeping my eyes fixed on it. As I passed it again, I noticed a slight movement inside the house. The red curtain shifted, and for a brief moment, I saw a face peering through the glass. It looked like me, not similar, identical. The face inside was staring directly at me. I quickly looked away and continued walking without stopping. After what felt like a long stretch of repetition, I began to feel disoriented. The silence of the street made everything more unsettling. There were no voices, no distant traffic, no ambient noise at all. It was as if the street existed in isolation from the rest of the world. Eventually, I saw an intersection ahead that looked familiar. It resembled the point where the shortcut should connect to the main road. I quickened my pace and stepped out of the street without hesitation. As soon as I crossed into the intersection, the environment changed instantly. The normal sounds of traffic returned. People were walking nearby. Cars were passing. Everything felt real again. I checked the time on my phone, and only 5 minutes had passed since I entered the shortcut. But my memory told a completely different story. Felt like I had spent much longer inside that street. That night, I tried to locate the shortcut again on a map, but no mapping service showed any street matching the one I had walked through. Out of curiosity, I returned to the same area the next day during daylight. I walked through the location where the street should have been, but instead of the narrow path I remembered, I found a completely open layout with buildings arranged differently and no continuous road connecting them. It looked like the space had been rearranged or had never contained the street at all. I asked a nearby shopkeeper if they had ever seen a narrow street connecting the two roads, but they looked at me with confusion and said there had never been any shortcut in that area. According to them, the space had always been a dead end with no passage through it. That didn't match what I experienced at all. Later that evening, I checked my phone gallery again, hoping to find some kind of proof. That's when I discovered something that made my stomach drop. There was a photo taken at the exact time I had been inside the shortcut. I had no memory of taking it. The image showed the repeating street exactly as I remembered it, including the broken streetlight and parked car. But in the distance, near the center of the frame, stood a figure facing the camera. The figure was me, not a reflection, not a resemblance. The same clothes, the same posture, and in the image, the figure appeared to be holding the phone up as if it was the one taking the picture. The most disturbing part was the timestamp on the image metadata. It showed that the photo was captured at a time when I was still inside the loop, yet I have no memory of stopping, turning, or raising my phone to take it. Since that day, I have avoided that area completely. But sometimes, when I check my phone at night, I notice something strange in my recent photos folder. New images appear occasionally without notification. Each one looks like the same street from a slightly different angle. And in some of them, the figure standing at the center is no longer facing the camera. It is walking away. In June 2025, I moved into a small apartment building on the edge of town. It wasn't new, but it was clean, quiet, and cheap enough for me to afford. The landlord told me the building had security cameras in every hallway, which made me feel a little safer living alone. First, everything felt normal. The neighbors kept to themselves, the nights were silent, and nothing seemed out of place. A week after moving in, I noticed something strange. There was a small screen near the entrance of my apartment that showed the live feed from the hallway camera outside my door. One night around 1:50 a.m., I walked past it and saw someone standing in the hallway. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, completely still, facing the camera. I stopped and stared at the screen for a few seconds. It felt off. People don't just stand like that for no reason. I opened my door slowly and looked outside. The hallway was empty. No one there. I frowned and looked back at the screen. He was still there. My chest tightened. I stepped back inside and locked the door immediately. It's probably just a delay, I told myself, or a glitch. I tried to ignore it and went to bed. The next night it happened again. Same time, same man, same position, standing there, not moving, not blinking. This time I didn't open the door. I just stood there watching the screen. Minutes passed. He didn't move at all. Then suddenly he tilted his head, just slightly, like he knew I was watching. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I stepped back slowly. My heart started beating faster. That wasn't normal. That wasn't a glitch. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked the landlord about the cameras. He said they worked fine and hadn't had any issues. I told him I thought I saw someone standing outside my door late at night. He looked confused. No one should be there that late, he said. I asked if he could check the recordings. He agreed. Later that day, he knocked on my door with a strange look on his face. I checked the footage, he said. There's nothing there. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean nothing? I asked. The hallway is empty all night, he replied. No one shows up on the camera. I didn't know what to say. That didn't make sense. I had seen it, twice, clear as day. That night I decided to record it. I used my phone and pointed it at the screen showing the hallway camera. I stayed awake, waiting. At exactly 1:50 a.m., he appeared again. Same spot, same stillness. My hands were shaking as I recorded the screen. This is real, I whispered. I'm not imagining this. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, the man raised his hand and pointed directly at the camera, at me. I froze. My breathing stopped. Then the screen flickered, just once. When it came back, he was gone. I ran to the door and locked it again, even though it was already locked. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I checked the video on my phone. My heart was pounding as it loaded. The recording showed the hallway screen, empty, the entire time. No man, no movement, nothing. I dropped my phone. That's when I realized something worse. The timestamp on the video, it showed 1:50 a.m., but I remembered clearly. I had started recording at 1:45. 5 minutes were missing, completely gone, like they never existed. I decided to leave that apartment the same day. I packed everything and didn't look back. A few days later, I got a call from the landlord. He sounded nervous. He asked me if I had been back to the apartment after moving out. I told him no. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said something I still can't explain. The camera outside your old door, it's still showing someone standing there every night. In October 2025, I bought a new phone after my old one suddenly stopped working. It wasn't anything special, just a normal upgrade, but it had a really good camera, especially in low light. I didn't think much of it at first. Everything worked perfectly, fast, smooth, no issues at all. For the first few days, it felt completely normal, until I used the front camera at night. One night around 2:20 a.m., I opened the camera just to check something on my face. The room was dark except for a small lamp behind me. When the camera turned on, I saw myself on the screen. Nothing unusual, just my face, slightly tired, staring back. But then I noticed something behind me, a shape, faint, almost blending into the darkness. I turned around instantly. There was nothing there. I frowned and looked back at my phone. The shape was gone. I laughed quietly. Just shadows, I said to myself. I put the phone down and went to sleep. The next night it happened again. Same time, around 2:30 a.m., I opened the front camera, and there it was again, behind me, clearer this time, the figure, standing in the corner of my room, completely still. I turned around quickly. Nothing. My heart started beating faster. I turned back to the screen. The figure was still there, but now it looked closer. I slowly stood up, staring at the phone. "What is that?" I whispered. The figure didn't move, didn't react, just stood there, watching. I took a step forward, then another. As I moved, the figure on the screen didn't match my movement. It stayed in place, like it wasn't actually in my room, like it was inside the camera. My hands started shaking. I lowered the phone slightly, and in that moment, the figure moved. Just a small shift, but enough to make my chest tighten. I raised the phone again quickly. It was closer now, close enough that I could start to make out details. A face, but not fully clear, like it didn't want to be seen. I backed away slowly. "This isn't real," I said. "This isn't real." But I couldn't stop looking. The next night I didn't want to check, but something pulled me to do it again. 2:30 a.m. Camera on. The figure was already there, closer than before, standing right behind me on the screen. My breathing stopped. I didn't turn around this time. I already knew nothing would be there. Instead, I just stared at the phone. The face slowly became clearer, and that's when I realized something that made my entire body go cold. It looked like me. Same eyes, same face, but the expression wrong. The smile too wide, too unnatural. My phone buzzed suddenly. A notification from my own camera app. I didn't even know that was possible. I opened it. There was a message. "Don't turn around." My hands started shaking uncontrollably. I wanted to drop the phone, but I couldn't. I was frozen. The reflection on the screen slowly leaned closer, its face almost touching the camera. And then it whispered, not through the room, through the phone speaker. Soft, clear. "I'm already behind you." I shut my eyes immediately. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I didn't move for what felt like minutes. Then slowly, I opened my eyes again. The screen was black. The camera had turned off by itself. I turned around. My room was empty. Nothing there. No one there. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked my phone gallery. There was a video I didn't remember recording, time-stamped at 2:30 a.m. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The video showed me standing in my room, holding my phone, facing the mirror. But that wasn't what scared me. Behind me, there was nothing. No figure, no shadow, nothing at all. Then slowly, in the video, I turned around and smiled, wider than I ever could. I dropped the phone instantly. I don't use the front camera anymore, but sometimes, late at night, my phone turns on by itself, and I get the same notification. "Why won't you look at me anymore?"